I like very much people, photographing people, and I'm very concerned to not to exploit the subject. That is, I try to establish a rapport between the subject and the photographer that satisfies both of us. First, there must be a total collaboration. That is, there must be a desire on the part of the subject to be photographed by me. And of course, I have to have the desire to photograph this person. This can happen in a matter of a minute. That is, someone I'd like to photograph, or like someone I don't know, and I ask the person to sit down or stand somewhere where he or she wants to be photographed, and right away there is a rapport. It might never happen, and then I just don't take the picture. You know, originally I'm interested in photographing this person, but the magic moment isn't there. Generally, most of my portraits were, the first picture is generally the good portrait, because I let the person to take up their own position. I'm interested in the common man, the common person, and also it's important for me to be able to talk to people. When I went to Greece, I didn't speak Greek. We spent a few weeks there. I hardly took any photography. I photographed some landscapes. Uh, when we stayed in Italy for 8 months during my sabbatical year, I knew that I'm going to go to Italy, so I started taking Italian courses 2 years before leaving, and that permitted me to communicate to people, and that's very important. I feel, of course, very comfortable in English or French-speaking countries, but it's really important for me to speak the language of the people. In photography, social change interests me more, and I'm trying to show that by going back, photographing the same subject years after, to show the change. Yeah, but generally, I'm not very political. It's really the present that interests me. And then just by photographing the same subject, whether it's a personal interior, in a different present, that is 5 years later in the present, that will show change and perhaps loss. But that's not something that I'm really looking for. I think besides the eye, you have to have a brain, a mind, and a heart, uh, and you also, when you say at the right moment, at the right time, includes chance. But as someone said, I think referring to Cartier-Bresson, that why is it that chance always happens to good photographers? Of course, it happens to amateurs as well, but more often to photographers who are already trained, who are sensitive to that 125th of a second when the photograph happens. And yeah, you have to be lucky as well, but I think it's more important to understand the subject, if necessary, do some research. If you're, for instance, going into an area or among a group of people, that you want to photograph. My subjects or themes in photography really deal with everyday life, mostly with people and their environment, whether it's indoors or outdoors. And that is what always interested me. I like very much cities, streets, how the architecture, how everything changes, how everything is an eternal flux. If you walk down on the street, you know, signs change, buildings are demolished, new buildings constructed. Same thing with people. If you walk into an interior, you take a photograph, if you come back the next day, it's not the same anymore. There might be just one object moved in the room, but this constant change interests me. And that's one reason that I'm interested in social documentary as opposed to just documentary, which should be just really literally documenting something, whereas in social documentary you're interested in change, how people's lives change. Talking about photographing the everyday, the ordinary, which uh, which I like, but it is important because the everyday, the ordinary can be banal, and that's okay. But to show the banal in a way it hasn't been seen before, I think that's important, and that can make the banal interesting. And if the banal is photographed in a very precise time frame and angle, point of view, then it doesn't become banal anymore. The banal becomes beautiful. Like there's this an American photographer, Bill Owens, who did a book, Suburbia, and he grew up in suburbia, and there's nothing more banal than suburbia, but it has its own beauty if you know it, and if you discover it, if it surprises you. Element of time is very important because, you know, in photography, how can you describe something in 125th of a second? You know, you have to continue photographing the in that particular situation, because then the next 125th of a second will be different, showing in people's expressions or just a light changing, so that the precise time is important. And I think in a so-called good photograph, the element of time and light is probably the most important thing.